is the world of Commander McBragg. Your head will whirl in the world of McBragg. He can do anything. In his world, he's a king. For so says the brag of McBragg.
There, Renchipoki, Africa. Well, boy, did I ever tell you about the time I went over the Renchipoki Falls?
No, but
I'd been out in the bush, don't you know, and all of a sudden I heard the war drums of the savage Ugamuga tribe. And I was left to face 1,000 savages alone. Ordinarily, this sort of thing wouldn't bother me, but I had a little trouble with my trusty rifle. What to do, eh? Quick as a flash, I ran. I ran for 3 days and 3 nights through jungles, across deserts, over mountains. Suddenly, I came to the brink of a huge waterfall. Just then, the savages broke from the jungle. I dived over the falls and plunging 5,000 feet. I disappeared beneath the surface of the water. Well, I'll wager those savages are still waiting for me to come up.
You mean you didn't come back up?
No, lad. I went so deep that it was shorter to go right on through and come out in Australia.
Commander, that story is out of this world.
Quite.
This is the world of Commander McBragg. Your hair will curl in the world of McBragg. He fights monsters galore and then asks for still more. For so says the brag of McBragg.
There, the Pacific Ocean. Did I ever tell you about the time I caught the world's biggest fish?
No, but
I was sailing around the world alone in my 2-masted yawl. And heaved to in mid-ocean for a bit of fishing. On my first cast, I got a strike, a big one. I pulled mightily on the line, thinking to haul the monster into the boat. But found to my amazement that I had hauled the boat into the fish. Well, there I was, locked in the cradle of the deep, so to speak. But I quickly took down the 2 masts of my boat and lashed them into one long pole. I knew that soon the monster would become sleepy and yawn. When he did, I rushed forward and jammed the double pole between his jaws. I then got back in my boat and rowed out. Fastening a line to the fish, I towed it along behind, intending to mount it as a trophy when I ended my travels, of course.
where is it? I must see that fish.
Unfortunately, the rowing made me so hungry, I ate it.
Commander, that story is out of this world.
Quite.
Cannon in hand, he can beat any band. For so says the brag of McBragg.
There, the Himalaya Mountains, my most exciting climb.
Commander, I must be going.
I was making the climb alone, except for bearers to carry supplies and weapons. We soon encountered a howling blizzard. My trusty bearers were unable to keep up with me. My tremendous stride, don't you know? And then it happened, an avalanche of snow. Deftly, I jumped aside, but the snow completely covered my bearers. There I was, alone in the blizzard. At that moment, I found myself facing a tribe of horrible monsters, the abominable snowmen. I raced up the mountain with the screaming monsters hot on my heels. I reached the top ahead of them, but there I could go no further, trapped by the abominable snowmen.
But what did you do?
I did the only possible thing. I whipped out my trusty lighter, sparked it into flame, and melted the abominable snowman. Then I simply used one of the monster's shields as a snow sled, and sped to the bottom of the mountain, a conquering hero.
Absolutely unbelievable.
Quite.
This is the world of Commander McBragg. Your head will whirl in the world of McBragg. He can do anything. In his world, he's a king. For so says the brag of McBragg.
There, the North Pole.
Really, Commander,
We began in an icebreaker. But when the ship could go no further, we set out on foot. I was leading the entire party when suddenly the ice broke away, leaving me cut off from the others. With undaunted spirit, I went on, fighting the elements alone. And then at last, only a few feet from the North Pole, I was confronted by savage polar bears. Ghastly. Quickly, I raised my rifle and fired. But the bitter cold froze the bullet in midair. Without hesitation, I raced the few remaining feet to the North Pole. And with amazing agility, I climbed the pole to lift myself out of reach of those ferocious jaws. I was safe.
But how did you get back to civilization?
Well, my mighty weight, don't you know, actually broke off the North Pole, broke it off. And with the pole in hand, I simply vaulted over the bears and landed once more back on the ship.
Commander, that's fantastic.
Great.
This is the world of Commander McBragg. Your hair will curl in the world of McBragg. He fights monsters galore and then asks for still more. For so says the brag of McBragg.
There, Khyber Pass. Did I ever tell you about the time I escaped from 10,000 screaming tribesmen at that very spot?
No, but
I was leading a small detachment of men up through the mountains in search of the rebel chieftain Alibi. When... Ambush! Quickly, we sought shelter among the rocks, and for a while kept them at bay with our cannon. But a lucky shot put ours out of commission. And soon I was the only one left. Cannon to the right of me, cannon to the left of me, cannon in front of me. I was 100 miles from my regiment. Then my ammunition gave out. And at that very moment, the 10,000 screaming tribesmen stormed into the pass.
what did you do?
Summoning my superhuman strength, I picked up the disabled cannon and using it like a rifle fired point blank into the advancing enemy.
Did it stop them?
Never found out, don't you know. The recoil from that mighty cannon acted like a rocket, and I shot over the mountains and dropped right in on the barracks. Just in time for tea.
How refreshing.
Quite.
When on the hill the Marines plant a flag, they may be led by Commander McBragg. With a cannon in hand, he can beat any band, for so says the brag of McBragg.
There, France. Did I ever tell you about the time I brought down 5 enemy planes single-handed?
No, but I...
Took off at dawn. Dawn patrol, don't you know? And headed for the enemy lines. When all of a sudden, out of nowhere, came 5 enemy planes. Guns blazing. I pulled every flying trick I knew. But there were too many for me. First, they shot off my tail. Then they shot off one wing. Then they shot off the other wing. Then the propeller. And finally, the fuselage. There I was, flat on my back at 5,000 feet and without an aeroplane. I dropped like a stone.
Good gracious, Commander, what did you do?
Do? Well, I soon caught up with the wings of my plane. And thinking quickly, I grabbed hold of them and was soon flying like a bird.
But I thought you brought down 5 enemy planes.
I did, laddie. The blighters were so surprised to see me flying that they didn't watch where they were going and...
Absolutely smashing.
Quite.
This is the world of Commander McBragg. Your head will whirl in the world of McBragg. He can do anything. In his world, he's a king. For so says the brag of McBragg.
There, Niagara Falls. Have I ever told you about the time I accepted a dare to go over Niagara Falls in a barrel?
If you would excuse me, Commander,
Totally unafraid of the raging waters. I had my servants nail me into a special barrel of my own design. And away I went. I felt sure I had everything under control. But I had complete faith in my own barrel design, don't you know? Then the unexpected happened. A drastic drop in temperature suddenly turned the falls to solid ice. And I found myself crashing down one ice step after another, with the barrel rapidly breaking apart. Hundreds of feet lay between me and the bottom of the falls of ice. It looked like the end.
Oh, no. What did you do?
Quickly breaking off 2 of the barrel staves, I strapped them to my feet. And as the last of the barrel broke away, I went skiing down the frozen falls. My fantastic stunt was greeted by wild applause.
Really, Commander? It sounds like a barrel of fun.
Quite.
This is the world of Commander McBragg. Your hair will curl in the world of McBragg. He fights monsters galore, and in arts for still more. For so says the brag of McBragg.
There, Dodge City, the wildest, most ferocious town in the entire West. At least it was until I cleaned it up.
You, Commander? I thought Wyatt Earp.
Nonsense. Wyatt couldn't handle it, so he called upon me. When I arrived in Dodge City, lead was flying everywhere. The Dalton boys were holding up the bank. The James boys were shooting up the Cactus Cafeteria. And Billy the Kid was shooting anything that moved. I fired a shot over their heads to get their attention, don't you know. All right, you blighters, clear out. I've come to clean up Dodge City. They all lined up in the street. 20 of the roughest, toughest guns in the West.
And you had only 5 bullets? Good heavens, Commander, what did you do?
My keen eyesight spotted a water tower at the end of the street. With deadly aim, I shot a large hole in it. The water gushed out and washed those desperados straight out of town. And that's how I cleaned up Dodge.
Splashing, Commander.
Quite.
This is the world of Commander McBragg.
Your hair will curl in the world of McBragg.
He fights monsters galore, and then asks for still more.
For so says the brag of McBragg.
There, the Okefenokee Swamp, the most primitive swamp in the United States.
But, Commander, you've already told.
I was in the swamp searching for the world's largest black snake. Traveling alone, I was braving terrible hazards, and finally, my bravery was rewarded. This was indeed the largest black snake in the world, and immediately we were locked in deadly combat. I had no fear whatsoever of the outcome. My superior strength, as you know. But suddenly, it tossed me into the air. I landed in a deep pit, and the giant snake came crawling in after me.
Oh, no, Commander. What did you do?
Remembering that this was an American snake, I began whistling the Star-Spangled Banner. And like all true Americans, the snake immediately came to attention. I climbed up the snake and, whistling all the while, carried the critter back to civilization.
Now, that is a smash ending.
Quite. There, Kitty Hawk. Did I ever tell you how I invented the airplane?
You, Commander? I always thought Wilbur and Orville.
The Wright brothers? Nonsense. Flew long before they did. Did a great deal of experimenting and applied the principle of the fireball. Couldn't seem to get the blasted thing off the ground, although I did manage to start a blaze out of a fire. Next, I tried using the bicycle principle. Again, I failed to fly, but I did manage to win a 6-day bicycle race in Akron.
So then you gave up?
Of course not. I finally hit on the idea of using energy from the sun, don't you know? And I built a huge radiometer, hooked it to the propeller. And in no time at all, I was 40,000 feet in the air.
Marvelous, Commander. I must see it.
You can't. Sun went under a cloud and I plummeted 40,000 feet. Drove a hole in the ground 3 miles deep.
Good heavens, were you hurt?
Only my feelings. For by the time I had crawled out of that hole, Orville and Wilbur had invented the airplane and taken all the credit.
Oh, that's too much.
Quite. Elephants, remarkable creatures. Did I ever tell you of my amazing encounter with a giant elephant?
Sorry, Commander. I must be going.
I was on a lonely safari when suddenly the natives dropped their supplies and began shouting, "Hulawada! Hulawada! Hulawada!" The natives vanished, and I was left alone to face this wild, destructive beast. It seemed certain that I would be done in, until my keen eyes noticed a large thorn in the beast's left front hoof. With one quick jerk, the thorn was removed. Immediately, the beast was quiet. And from that moment on, he was my faithful friend. He followed me wherever I went. Into Paris, where he encountered the Eiffel Tower. Into London, where he bumped into the Royal Palace. On to America, where he stumbled into the Empire State Building.
My goodness, however did you get rid of him?
Yes. Quite often he still finds me and...
Surely, Commander, you don't expect me to believe... Commander? Commander!
This is the world of Commander McBragg.
Your hair will curl in the world of McBragg. He fights monsters galore, and then asks for still more. For so says the brag of McBragg.
There, El Mesa Mucho, the home of the giant bird. Did I ever tell you about the time I was held captive?
No, Commander, but I really must be going.
I must be going too. I'll tell you on the way. I'd been flying over desert country when suddenly my engine stopped. Quickly, I bailed out. I landed in a huge bird's nest. My chute covered me so that I looked just like the other eggs. Just then, the mother bird arrived and settled on the nest until we hatched. After the first shock, she treated me as one of her own. When it came time to fly, she pushed Alice, Jeffrey, and Seymour out of the nest. Then it was my turn. Of course, I fell like a stone.
Good heavens, Commander, what happened?
Oh, Mother caught me. She tried again and again, but finally gave up and left me in the nest. I became her favorite.
How did you ever manage to escape?
Didn't exactly. Can I give you a lift?
No, thanks, Commander. I've got to be... I say, Commander?
There, Chicago, Illinois. Have I ever told you how I cleaned out the Chicago racketeers?
Oh, the Roaring Twenties, Commander?
Precisely.
The police felt that they could break up the racketeers if I could bring in the leader, Al Baloney. I agreed. So I decided to pose as a vacuum cleaner salesman. Knowing that Al Baloney was always well guarded, I armed myself carefully. Snub-nosed pistol, snub-nosed machine gun, and snub-nosed cannon. I made my way to the house of Al Baloney and demanded an opportunity to demonstrate my vacuum cleaner. But I failed to consider that I might be searched. When I stood before the cruel Al Baloney, I was completely disarmed.
Terrible, Commander. Did you give up?
Never! I whipped out my vacuum cleaner, flipped on the switch. Al Baloney was sucked right into the vacuum cleaner. Then I closed the case on Al Baloney and delivered him to the police.
You actually cleaned up Chicago with a vacuum cleaner?
Quite. Borealis Islands, coldest islands in the world. Did I ever tell you I was shipwrecked there?
I'm sure you did, Commander, and
A storm blew me off course, and I struck a rock off the coast of the island. The boat began sinking, and I knew I would not last 2 seconds in the freezing water. I climbed the mast and kept right on going until I reached a passing seagull. Grasping its feet, I glided to shore. Then I saw the tracks of a monstrous bear, and there I was without a weapon. I broke off a forked stick, and using my suspenders, made a crude slingshot. Just in time, for the monster was upon me. I reached down for some stones for the slingshot, but there were none. Nothing but snow. He had me cornered.
Good heavens, what did you do?
I cried. I thought of my dear mother, and the tears rolled down my cheeks. But it was so cold that they instantly froze solid. Fitting a frozen tear into my slingshot, I caught the monster right between the eyes, and he fell at my feet.
Oh, Commander, you barely made it.
Quite.
This is the world of Commander McBragg.
Your hair will curl in the world of McBragg. He fights monsters galore, and then asks for still more. For so says the brag of McBragg.
There, Australia. Have you heard of my encounter with the giant kangaroo?
Was that the telephone, Commander?
Exactly. I had received a call from the owner of a traveling circus. The world's strongest boxing kangaroo had escaped, and the chaps wanted me to help in locating him. I began my search entirely alone. Fearless, don't you know. Soon, I found the beast. The moment he spotted me, the kangaroo made ready for combat, and I did likewise. I was fast, but the beast had tremendous power in his right fist. And suddenly, I saw him draw back to deliver an uppercut that was sure to be the end of me.
Oh, no. What in the world did you do?
Remembering the power in that right fist, I quickly grabbed up a huge log. And as the uppercut hit that log, it splintered into 100 pieces and went up into the air. And then came down. caging the kangaroo perfectly.
One might say, Commander, you really boxed him in.
Why?
When on the hill the Marines plant the flag, they may be led by Commander McBragg.
With a cannon in hand, he can beat any band.
For so says the brag of McBragg.
There, the North Swamps. Did I ever tell you about the giant mosquito?
No, Commander, but I have an engagement.
One morning at my cabin in the wilds, I was set upon by the most enormous mosquito I had ever seen. I let him have it with my handy spray gun. It didn't work. I tried my rifle against the brute, but the bullets just bounced off him. There was nothing to do but run for it. He drove his stinger right through the cabin wall. Quickly grabbing a hammer, I bent the stinger, thus capturing the beast. But he was so strong that he reared back and flew off with the cabin.
Good heavens, what did you do?
I took a saw and cut off the stinger. The mosquito was then off balance and went spinning straight into the ground.
But what about you?
I rushed into the cabin, grabbed the tablecloth, made it into a parachute, and floated safely down to earth.
Oh, Commander, you really brought the house down.
Why?
This is the world of Commander McBragg. Your head will whirl in the world of McBragg.
He can do anything. In his world, he's a king.
For so says the brag of McBragg.
There, merry England. Did I tell you about my encounter with the Black Knight?
Really, Commander, it's much too...
The king ordered me to bring in the villain, and of course that meant a deadly duel. On guard! Hastily, I drew my sword and closed my visor. Unfortunately, I had to reopen the visor. Forgot to remove my pipe, don't you know? The Black Knight was a tremendous swordsman. Soon, he had me up a tree. He swung a telling blow for my head, but I managed to block it. Half of my sword fell away, but bravely I fought on. Fighting with only the hilt of my sword, I was soon backed up to a precipice, a sheer drop of 1,000 feet. The Black Knight raised his deadly sword. It thundered down and sheared the mighty McBragg in two.
Sheared the... Oh, no.
Oh, no, indeed. Just as the villain lifted his sword, I escaped through a back hatch in my special armor. And when he split the armor, I was already behind him. And that's how I captured the Black Knight.
I say, Commander, that was a night to remember.
Quite.
This is the world of Commander McBragg. Your hair will curl in the world of McBragg.
He fights monsters galore, and then asks for still more.
For so says the brag of McBragg.
There, the great Blue Mountain. Did I ever tell you about the time I was lost up there? and...
No, Commander, but I...
Wandering around for days. No shelter, no food. Starving, don't you know? But one morning, I was awakened by loud quacking. During the night, we had a quick freeze, and down on the pond, a flock of ducks had been frozen to the surface. Sitting ducks, as it were. Duck for dinner. I built a roaring fire, put the pot on to boil, and headed for the pond. I was looking around for a nice plump duck when their leader, guessing what my intentions were, began a loud quacking. And the entire flock flew off, taking the pond and me with it.
Good heavens, what did you do?
Fortunately, the ducks banked into a turn, and I slid off into a soft pine tree.
But the ducks were gone, and you still had no food.
Not quite. You see, the ducks flew over my roaring fire, and the pond melted. Water and ducks poured straight into my pot.
I say, Commander, from then on, everything was duck soup.
Quite. Did I tell you I was the engineer on old 92?
Don't you have an appointment, Commander?
I was making the run to Abilene. And as always, I was determined to bring her in on time. Suddenly, out of the hills came the notorious James boys. Outlaws, don't you know? I gave the old 92 all she had, but the outlaws were upon us. Stop this train! Determined to keep on time, I grabbed the smokestack and gave the gang a steam blast.
Breathtaking.
But that wasn't the end of the gang. I replaced the smokestack and thundered along until the James boys blew up the river bridge, and the train was moving too fast to stop.
What could you possibly do?
I drove old 92 right down the bank and through the river. Not only did I arrive in Abilene on time, but we brought in the largest load of fish ever seen there, and all cooked, too.
Cooked?
Precisely. The steam from our engine boiled the water and cooked the fish to a turn.
I say, Commander, that is a fishy story.
Quite. Did I tell you I was a secret agent in New York?
Oh, surely, Commander.
My chief had given me a briefcase to take to the ambassador on the 50th floor of the Empire State Building. No sooner had I left headquarters than... Give the briefcase. Thinking quickly, I whipped off my belt, which was in reality a trained rattlesnake. The enemy agents fled, but I had not gone far when the briefcase. It was a tight spot, but I removed my specially designed shoes, clamped the heels together, and they became a deadly machine gun. A few steps further and give the briefcase. I gave him a squirt of tear gas from my boutonniere, bound him with my coat, tie, and shirt, and went along. I was about to enter the Empire State Building when... The briefcase? Ha, 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 ha. Why do you are laughing?
Why were you? It looked hopeless.
Uh-huh. But in my pipe was a cleverly concealed jet engine. Turning it on, I shot up to the 50th floor, stepped through the window, and delivered the briefcase.
Ingenious, Commander.
Quite.
This is the world of Commander McBragg.
Your hair will curl in the world of McBragg. He fights monsters galore and then asks for still more. For so says the brag of McBragg.
Where? Oyster Island. Did I tell you about my adventure there?
It sounds familiar, Commander.
My yacht had been blown far off course, and I found myself near an uncharted island. I spotted a native chap floundering in the water. Fearlessly, I dove in and brought the native to shore. Sanko. The chap I'd saved was the chief's son. I was a hero. The natives gave me their greatest prize, a crown of mockingbird feathers. And they offered me all the pearls I could dive for in their oyster beds.
Pearls, how wonderful.
Yes. But no sooner had I dived in than I spotted a giant oyster 10 feet across and a pearl inside as big as a basketball. Forgetting the danger, I lunged for the pearl, and the giant oyster closed on me.
Horrible. There was no way out.
Only one. Whipping off my crown of mockingbird feathers, I tickled the oyster unmercifully. The feathers finally made him laugh out loud. I grabbed the pearl and swam to freedom.
Truly a jewel of an ending.
Quite.
When on the hill the Marines plant a flag,
They may be led by Commander McBragg. With a cannon in hand, he can beat any band. For so says the brag of McBragg.
Where? Florida, where I nearly invented the first horseless carriage.
You mean a motor car, Commander?
Precisely. I plan to use steam to power my horseless carriage. Many well-wishers turned out to watch the final test. I made sure the steam pressure was up. And then I blasted off. It seems I had made a small mistake in my design. I had to turn the car around, don't you know. Once again, I blasted off.
Your automobile was a success.
It seemed so, but then I realized the steam boiler was drastically overheating. The pressure was so great, the car wouldn't stop. And any minute, the boiler would explode. Quickly, I turned the wheel hard and drove straight into the ocean.
A total loss.
Not at all. The ocean water kept the boiler nicely cool. The smokestack acted as a perfect periscope. And that's how I invented the submarine.
But the car was all washed up.
Quite.
this is the world of Commander McBragg. Your head will whirl in the world of McBragg.
He can do anything. In his world, he's a king. For so says the brag
There, Plymouth, England. Did I tell you how I started out to swim the Atlantic Ocean?
But, Commander, that's 3,000 miles.
Precisely. I planned to swim from England to the USA. I swam steadily, and then a tremendous storm came up. But I fought on. Courage, don't you know. Finally, the ocean calmed. I'd been thrown off my course. My compass was gone. And then, suddenly, I saw a tremendous school of man-eating sharks. Hopelessly outnumbered, there was only one thing to do. Swim for it! I was constantly looking over my shoulder as the ferocious sharks gained on me. I smashed straight into the beach.
And sharks behind you? Well, what happened?
I struck the beach with such speed, I continued driving across the land for 50 miles, straight out into the Pacific Ocean.
The Pacific Ocean?
Precisely. Far off my course, instead of the United States, I had struck land in Panama and cut through from one ocean to the other. And...
I know. That's how you dug the Panama Canal.
Right.
This is the world of Commander McBragg.
Your hair will curl in the world of McBragg. He fights monsters galore, and then asks for still more. For so says the brag of McBragg.
There, Fort Apache. Have I ever told you about the time
I'm sure you have, Commander. If you'll excuse me.
It was a lonely outpost. The only enjoyment I had was my phonograph and records. Day after day, savage Indians attacked. My soldiers were dropping like flies. I tried to telegraph for replacements. But the Indians cut the lines. We fought bravely on, forcing them back as they charged time and time again. But finally, our ammunition was gone. The situation seemed hopeless.
Terrible. There was nothing you could do.
Ah, but there was. As the Indians bore down for their final attack, I whipped out my phonograph and put on a recording of a mighty cavalry charge. Immediately, the Indians, sure that the cavalry were just over the hill, raced off and never challenged us again.
You did it with your phonograph. Why, Commander, I believe that's some sort of record.
Quite.
When on the hill the Marines plant a flag,
They may be led by Commander McBragg. With a cannon in hand, he can beat any band. For so says the brag of McBragg.
There, Elm City, where I was star of the flying trapeze.
Oh, Commander, you've already told.
I'd been having hard times, don't you know? And I was selling balloons with a traveling circus.
Balloons?
Balloons? Balloons? One day I heard that the star trapeze performer had quit. I immediately applied for the job. My only rival was a bloke named Nasty McNasty, and I challenged him to a contest of skill 500 feet above ground. I did a somersault, he did a somersault. I did a double somersault, he did a double somersault. I announced I would do 5 somersaults. He knew he couldn't do that, so he cut the trapeze rope partly through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Good heavens! 500 feet! What did you do?
Thinking quickly, I blew up one of my balloons, and it cushioned my fall. It bounced me back up to the trapeze, where I tied the rope and finished my act in triumph.
Commander, you're a real swinger.
Cool.
This is the world of Commander McBragg. Your head will whirl in the world of McBragg. He can do anything. In his world, he's a king. For so says the brag of McBragg.
There, Gallantry Gorge. Did I ever tell you how I was attacked by savages there?
No, Commander, but
My goal was to balloon around the world in 79 days. I took off from Paris in a balloon of my own design. Chewing bubble gum to relieve the pressure in my ears, I quickly rose to 20,000 feet. I crossed over the Alps, where I did a little skiing, and broke the record for the jump. Then I soared over the Mediterranean, where I did little fishing. Caught a huge fish, which put up a terrific struggle. But it couldn't stand the altitude and soon gave up. From there, I had to cross the Galangi Gorge with its fierce natives. I thought I was perfectly safe, high in the air, but soon arrows were whistling around me. A lucky shot punctured my balloon, and I plunged toward Earth.
good heavens, what did you do?
Using my gum, I blew a tremendous bubble, which took the place of my balloon, carried me out of the gorge, over the mountains, and around the world in exactly 79 days.
Saved by hot air.
Quite.
This is the world of Commander McBragg.
Your hair will curl in the world of McBragg.
He fights monsters galore, and then asks for still more.
For so says the brag of McBragg.
There, Indianapolis. Did I tell you how I won the Indianapolis 500?
Race, Commander? I really must be racing along.
Just 2 laps from the end, I was in the lead, naturally, when my right rear tire went flat. The other cars roared past me. Getting out, I quickly patched the tire and pumped it up. I put on full speed and was soon in the lead again. But then my left rear tire went flat. All the other cars passed me. Again, I repaired the tire and was on my way, driving with unbelievable skill. I soon regained first place. However, the strain had been too great on my engine, and it exploded.
Good heavens, Commander, but I thought you said you won the race.
Yes. Thinking quickly, I pointed my tire pump to the rear, and pumping furiously, I jetted across the finish line, an easy winner.
Would you call that a pumped-up story, Commander?
Huh? Oh, quite.
When on the hill the Marines plant a flag,
They may be led by Commander McBragg.
With a cannon in hand, he can beat any band.
For so
South American jungle.
Another jungle story, Commander?
I was walking through the jungle when a cricket had been caught in a huge spider web, and the deadly spider was moving in. Quickly, I freed the poor cricket. But a giant rhino took that opportunity to charge me. I tried to run, but I found myself on the edge of a precipice 1,000 feet high. Using my amazing reflexes, I dove to the side.
Safe?
Yes, but the crush of the rhino had been so fierce that the precipice cracked, opening a huge gorge 40 feet wide in front of me. I was trapped, but suddenly it was the cricket I had saved from the spider. Quickly, I unraveled a thread from my clothing, tied one end to the cricket and the other end to the rope I always carried. Yes, I pointed across the gorge, and the cricket leaped across and tied the rope to a tree. I tied the other end to a rock and crawled to safety. My kindness to the cricket had saved my life.
Oh, good show. That was really cricket.
Right.